You walk into a room trying to look perfect. Perfect outfit, perfect smile, perfect posture. You say the right things. You laugh at the right moments. You look calm, smart, polished, and completely in control. And somehow, nobody feels comfortable getting close to you. They admire you. They respect you. They may even feel a little intimidated by you. But they don't relax around you. They don't open up. They don't lean in and say, I feel safe with this person. And that is the strange trap of perfection. The more flawless you try to appear, the less human you may feel to everyone else. Not because people hate excellence. They don't. People respect competence. People admire confidence. People notice when someone has their life together. But admiration is not the same thing as connection. You can admire a statue. You can admire a luxury car. You can admire a perfect Instagram photo. But you don't call a statue at 2 a.m. when your life is falling apart. You don't tell a luxury car your deepest insecurity. You don't feel emotionally safe with a perfect surface. And that's the problem. A lot of us are trying so hard to become impressive that we accidentally become unreachable. We build the perfect image, then wonder why nobody feels close enough to come inside. Today, I want to show you why looking flawless can quietly damage your social life. Why one small, harmless imperfection can actually make people like you more. And why the person everyone wants to be around is usually not the perfect person. It's the person who makes everyone else feel safe enough to stop performing. Here's the simplest way to understand it. Perfection creates admiration. Imperfection creates access. And if you understand that one idea, you may never walk into a room the same way again. Think about the most perfect person you know. You probably know someone like this. Their clothes always look clean. Their hair always looks intentional. They never stumble over words. They never seem confused. They never look like they're mentally calculating whether they left the stove on. Everything about them feels polished. And when you first see them, you might think, wow, this person is impressive. But then something weird happens. You start checking yourself. Is my shirt wrinkled? Was that joke stupid? Did I stand weird? Did I just forget how hands work? Suddenly, you're not connecting with them. You're measuring yourself against them. Their perfection doesn't make you feel closer. It makes you feel evaluated, even if they're not judging you, even if they're actually kind, even if they have no bad intentions. Their flawless image can still trigger something in your brain. It makes you think, I need to be careful here. I need to perform. I need to not look stupid. And the moment people feel like they have to perform around you, connection starts dying. Because real connection does not happen when two people are showing each other their best advertisements. It happens when both people feel human enough to breathe. But most of us are terrified of being human. We are terrified of the tiny crack, the awkward pause, the wrong word, the nervous laugh, the moment where we look less than perfectly composed. And there is a reason for that. Your fear of imperfection is not random. It is old, very old. For most of human history, humans lived in small groups, small tribes, maybe 50 people. Maybe 100, maybe 150. In that world, belonging was not about having a fun social life. Belonging was survival. If the group accepted you, you had food, protection, warmth, people to watch your back. If the group rejected you, you were alone. And alone was dangerous. No shelter, no backup, no fire, no one to warn you when something moved in the dark. And unfortunately, a saber-toothed tiger does not care about your confidence journey, so your brain learned one brutal rule. Don't get rejected. Don't look useless. Don't look strange. Don't become the person the group pushes away. That is why embarrassment feels so intense. It doesn't feel like a small mistake. It feels like danger. Your palms sweat. Your face gets hot. Your throat tightens. Your brain starts screaming, "Fix this, hide this, don't let them see." Because, to your ancient nervous system, a social mistake is not just uncomfortable, it feels like exile. And exile used to mean death. So when you're about to speak in a meeting and your heart starts racing, that is not just anxiety. That is ancient survival software running in the background. Very dramatic software, extremely outdated, but still very loud. The problem is, your brain is trying to protect you from rejection by making you hide the very things that help people connect with you. It tells you, don't show weakness. Don't look nervous. Don't admit confusion. Don't let anyone see the crack. So you polish yourself. You edit yourself. You become careful. Then more careful. Then so careful that nobody can feel you anymore. You become impressive, but not intimate. Respected, but not reachable. Admired, but not approached. And this is where perfection becomes lonely. Because when someone looks flawless, we don't always experience them as a person. We experience them almost like an object, a statue, something beautiful, something elevated, something placed behind glass. And statues are made to be admired from a distance. You can study them. You can praise them. You can take a photo of them. But you cannot need a statue. And you cannot be needed by one. That is the missing ingredient. Real connection requires mutual humanity. It requires the feeling that both people are unfinished. Both people are trying. Both people sometimes forget names, panic over emails, overthink conversations, and pretend they understood the instructions when they absolutely did not. That's what makes someone feel safe. Not that they have no flaws, but that their flaws don't threaten the relationship. This is why small imperfections can be so powerful. Not huge flaws, not cruelty, not irresponsibility, not emotional chaos. Small, harmless human flaws. You laugh when you stumble over a sentence. You admit you are terrible with directions. You say, "I was nervous about that." You confess that your perfect presentation was powered by caffeine and questionable snacks. These moments tell people something important. They say, "You don't have to perform around me. I am human too." And that is where connection begins. There's a famous study that shows this beautifully. In 1966, social psychologist Elliot Aronson ran an experiment that became one of the most well-known studies in social psychology. The setup was simple. Participants listened to recorded interviews. Then they rated how likable each person seemed. One candidate was highly competent, smart, confident, strong answers, excellent credentials. He even scored very high on a knowledge quiz. Another candidate was more average, ordinary answers, less impressive, nothing special. As expected, people liked the highly competent candidate more. No surprise there. Competence matters. Being good at something helps. Nobody is shocked by that. But then Aronson added a twist. In another version of the recording, near the end of the interview, something happened. The highly competent candidate spilled coffee on himself. You could hear the cup. You could hear the little moment of panic. Then he said something like, "Oh no, I spilled coffee all over my new suit." A small mistake. A slightly embarrassing moment. The kind of thing most of us would replay in our heads for the next 7 years. And here's the surprising part. People liked him more after the coffee spill. Not less, more. The mistake did not ruin his image. It humanized him. Before the spill, he was impressive. After the spill, he was impressive and human. And that combination is powerful, because competence earns respect. but imperfection creates access. That tiny coffee spill gave people permission to stop seeing him as a perfect performance and start seeing him as a person. This is called the Pratfall Effect, and it tells us something most perfectionists desperately need to hear. A small flaw does not always make you less likable. Sometimes it makes you more likable, but only under one condition. And this part is important, because if you misunderstand this, the whole lesson falls apart. The average candidate also spilled coffee. Same mistake, same coffee, same awkward little moment. But people liked him less. Why? Because he had not established competence first. When the highly competent person spilled coffee, people thought, oh, he's brilliant, but human. When the average person spilled coffee, people thought, oh no, he's average and clumsy. Same flaw, different foundation. That is the rule. Competence first. Humanity second. Value first. Imperfection second. This is not a permission slip to be careless. It is not a strategy where you walk into a meeting and knock over your drink for charisma. Please do not weaponize coffee. The point is not to perform imperfection. The point is to stop hiding the harmless human things once your value is already clear. Be good at what you do. Be prepared. Be reliable. Do the work. Keep your promises. Show people they can trust your competence. But after that, stop acting like every tiny mistake will destroy you, because it usually won't. In fact, the small crack may be the thing that lets people in. And right now, a lot of people need that crack. Because everyone is tired. Everyone is performing. At work, people perform competence. On social media, people perform happiness. On dates, people perform confidence. At family gatherings, people perform stability. Even when someone says, I'm a mess, somehow the lighting is perfect, and the caption has been edited 3 times. We are surrounded by polished versions of people. And it is exhausting, because when everyone looks perfect, everyone feels alone. You think you are the only one struggling. You think everyone else received the adult manual, and you missed the email. You think everyone else is calm, confident, and emotionally well-adjusted. Meanwhile, everyone else is thinking the exact same thing about you. This is where another psychological idea matters. It's called the illusion of transparency. It means we overestimate how much other people can see our internal emotions. When you are nervous, you feel it from the inside. You feel your heart pounding. You feel your stomach tightening. You feel your brain buffering like a bad internet connection. So you assume everyone else can see it too? You think there is a giant neon sign above your head flashing. I am nervous. I do not belong here. Please do not ask me what I do for fun, because I have forgotten my entire personality, but other people usually cannot see nearly as much as you think. What feels like a massive internal crisis to you may look like a normal pause to everyone else. You think your anxiety is obvious. They think you are thinking. You think your awkward moment was unforgettable. They forgot it because they were busy worrying about their own awkward moment. That is the comedy of social life. Everyone thinks they are being watched, but everyone is mostly watching themselves. You are worried they are judging you. They are worried you are judging them. You are trying to hide your flaws. They are trying to hide theirs. It's not a room full of judges. It's a room full of people quietly hoping nobody notices their browser tabs, their nervous laugh, or the fact that they said, you too, when the waiter said, enjoy your meal. This means something important. You do not need to manage your image as much as you think. You do not need to control every word. You do not need to sand down every rough edge. Most people are not looking for a perfect performance. They are looking for a signal that it is safe to be real. And you can become that signal. Not by oversharing, not by dumping your entire emotional history onto someone you met 12 minutes ago. That is not vulnerability. That is a surprise documentary. Real vulnerability is smaller, cleaner, more natural. It is saying, I was actually nervous about that presentation. It is laughing and saying, my brain just completely deleted that word. It is admitting, I'm great with strategy, terrible with directions. It is telling someone, I'm trying to get better at speaking up, so I'm practicing. These little moments do not make you weak. They make you easier to trust. Because they show people you are not pretending to be above the human condition. You are in it with them. And that matters. Because the most socially intelligent person in the room is not always the smoothest person. It is not always the funniest person. It is not always the most impressive person. Often, it is the person who makes everyone else feel less afraid of being imperfect. That is a rare skill. To walk into a room and not silently demand performance from everyone around you. To be competent without being cold. Confident without being untouchable. Successful without making other people feel small. That is the balance. That is what people actually trust. Because here is the truth. Nobody really connects with your perfect image. They connect with the parts of you that make them feel less alone. The nervous laugh. The honest admission. The small imperfection. The moment you stop trying to prove you are above everyone else. And quietly show that you are human too. That is why perfection can be such a trap. It promises acceptance, but often creates distance. It tells you, if you become flawless, nobody can reject you. But connection does not come from being impossible to criticize. Connection comes from being safe to approach. That is the difference. Perfection says, look how impressive I am. Connection says, you can breathe around me. Perfection says, I have no cracks. Connection says, I know what cracks feel like, and people are starving for the second one, so what do you actually do with this? Start simple. This week, do not try to impress one person. Try to make one person feel safe. That's the challenge. In one conversation, stop performing for just 5 seconds. Admit one harmless human thing. Laugh at one tiny mistake. Ask one real question instead of trying to sound clever. Say, I'm still figuring that out. Say, I was nervous about this. Say, honestly, I have no idea, but I want to understand. You may be surprised by what happens, because very often, when you show a little humanity, the other person finally puts down their armor, too. And suddenly, the conversation changes. It becomes less polished, but more real, less impressive, but more alive. And that is the whole point. You do not need to become perfect to be loved. You need to become real enough for people to recognize themselves in you. So keep your competence. Keep your standards. Keep growing. But stop turning yourself into a statue. People are not looking for a flawless sculpture. They are looking for another human being. Be competent enough to be respected. Be human enough to be trusted. And if you spill a little coffee along the way, maybe don't panic. You might have just become more likable. If this hit a little too close to home, drop a like and subscribe.